with priceactiontradingsystem.com, and it's Thursday. It's March 6th. This will be our chart lesson for today. This is Thursday, so this will wrap up our chart lessons for the week. No chart lessons on Fridays. Let's just get right into it because there's been a lot of price action the last few days, and these videos have been 30 and 40 minutes long. So I want to get right to the point and get this thing done and get it wrapped up. You can see that we had another big bearish day down. We did close off the lows again, but we made an even lower low. So, I mean, just look at this. It looks like we could still go lower here. We are severely oversold. So when this thing does pop, it's probably going to pop strongly. But who knows when that's going to be? It's difficult to pick a low, and I don't know if we're going to go higher tomorrow. We're going to continue the status quo. It's pretty much the same thing every morning. We open, we trade lower early, find the bottom, we rally a little bit, and then we either chop sideways or we close or sell off again, um, and then recover some at the close. And that's what we've kind of done every day now, over and over and over. It's just kind of been the pattern. We have one bullish day in here. Otherwise, these are all fairly bearish days. I mean, big bearish days. And today was no different. So um, there it is on the daily chart. Still looks very bearish. Still looks very oversold. Uh, Way overdue for a correction, but sometimes these things can stay or remain oversold much longer than you would expect. So we will. The idea is don't try to tell yourself it's going to bounce or reverse because we're way oversold. Just follow the price action. The daily chart's going to move a lot slower than the 2,000 tick chart, so uh, the chart's telling us that we're overdue for a bounce, but will it come tomorrow? Maybe next week. We could just chop sideways for the next week, and it may be another week or two before we relieve some of these oversold conditions. But the market is definitely oversold. There's definitely been a lot of liquidation here. I mean, it takes a lot of selling to have these kind of days. So there's been a lot of liquidation. At some point, it'll dry up, and the markets will have no choice but to bounce, and we'll go higher. And it may only be temporary. It might be a reversal, but it looks like we are turning down here at this point. We were up, and then it looked like we were sideways, and now it looks like we may be turning down. So we may go into a bear market. We'll just have to see. But I'm not going to beat around the bush here. Let's go to the 2,000 tick chart, take a look at it, and get to the trades there. Okay, here it is. The news is falling off, and this is yesterday's or tomorrow's news that is up here now. There's a setting in there. You can only set this thing to hold the news for like 300 minutes, but you can go into the program and change something. And I'd done that before, but when I had to reload everything, I lost that. So at some point I'll fix that where it doesn't fall off. I just hadn't had a chance to do it yet. But let's look at the chart. You can see we had this big sell-off early on. Then we had a correction, which took maybe 50 to 60% of it back. And then we had another, I mean, it's a perfect measured move to the tick, looks like. If you zoom in there, we might have came up a tick or two short there. But that's, for a daily chart to move that big, that's a pretty doggone good, close measured move there. And so, and you could see once we kind of rallied from there, it took off. But it just couldn't muster anything after that. It just sells right back off again. Every correction is met with heavy selling. So that tells you there's some liquidation going on. And this market's crazy. Today was, once again, it's a crazy day, but there were some pretty easy to find, easy to spot setups here. So I think it's been easier the last couple of days, even though this is still hard trading, don't get me wrong. But it has been a little bit easier to trade. So, but let's zoom in here. You see the leg down, the correction, and we actually went sideways for this last leg, completely played out. But clearly two measured legs down. And what we had here was we had a spike and channel down that folded over into a flatter channel. And sometimes this is a little bit too steep, so it folds over into something that's a little more your perfect trend is a 45-degree angle that just kind of goes from corner to corner. Those are a good healthy trend. So this is starting to be a little. This is too strong, and this is a little light, and then that led into the correction. Excuse me, led into the correction there, which suddenly went sideways, and then we turned down again and traded down into this low, and we really worked sideways from there on. So there it is, a little closer look. But it's 7 o'clock came right in here somewhere. What was it? Where was this bar? One of these here. Yeah, it was between these two. Right in here, we 7 o'clock, and so we had this. We had news. I think this was unemployment, if I remember, unemployment claims or something. So you had to sit out, and really by uh, 10 minutes or so, you may not even had to wait that long. There wasn't anything there wasn't really a good setup there anyway. So I think you were probably better off just to kind of sit there and wait. And we turned down at the top of the channel, worked down to the midline, bounced again, and we got this triple test right at the trend line. We did get a break, it looks like here, but I like trading that as a triple test. Um, and you can see that bar is not quite as high as this one, but I think that's good enough. Call that we actually tested it here and it turned down here. So generally I don't like inside bars, but that's so close to the top, it's not that big a deal. Pretty good signal bar. I think you're okay to go short. Maybe I should have made it green, because you got to be careful with these inside bars. I actually talked to somebody about one in an email here recently. I can't remember if that was today or yesterday, but they were sending me there was a setup like this, and they went short maybe below this bar, which is too late. This is your signal bar here, and it doesn't qualify. But when you get this one right next to it, it's almost an equal high, and you got a triple test, and you're in a downtrend. It's right at the key entry point. You're probably okay there. Should you wait on a lower high? Maybe, but you don't get one here. And off it goes, and I don't see any other entries here. They're all first entries all the way down. We bounce. We did have a break and a new low, but we weren't quite to the previous lows. Maybe you could tighten that up just a little, like right there. But so maybe you could do that, but you still don't quite touch that trend line. But you do have the break and a couple of swings down, so it's a possibility. You just got to be careful trying to pick these lows. I really think you needed to bounce off this line. And it tries to go higher, gets a close outside new high, and next thing you know, you're running lower here. And you could argue that is, well, you can't argue that is a second entry, but the signal bar is not good enough. The lower high here is just a first entry. But you do have the trend down, close outside, new low, and now you got pretty much. This went a little bit lower than this, but it closes pretty close. Either way, it's a second entry long, and we've already had the break and a new low easily, and so this is another push lower. So maybe you go long. That's another reason why maybe you take that one as well. I may not have mentioned that we already had the break up here, and you've got a couple of legs down, and you can see that. So maybe you go long there. That's another reason why maybe you don't quite make it to that lower trend line, because the trend is pretty much over. But prices still try to push lower once again, and you get two legs down. That's a second entry long. After that measured move, I like that one. There's a higher low here, but not a very good setup. Now you get a double test. Now you get a triple test with a good signal bar. That's where you go long. You did get your break here, but you're just purely looking for prices to come back to this trend line here. So of course we've already closed outside that, so prices could go higher, but that would be your next expected target doesn't mean prices are going to stop there. I'm just saying that would be your next expected target. So you would expect prices to have plenty of room to run there. So I like going long on that triple test with a good signal bar. It does turn down here momentarily. I don't think I would go short there. It's just a first entry. I think I would wait and see what happens. You can see prices run up again. And so now you got another second entry up here, but this is a true inside bar. It's close to that one, but there's no other resistance up here. Even though you're expecting prices to reverse, I think you wait for a lower high and you just don't get one. And next thing you know, you're running lower again, close outside, move to a new low, and it reverses. No entry there. That's just a first entry. We made a new high, so another first entry. You just get first entries all the way up here. Too congested, and again, you get a spike and a channel. So this first move is a spike up, and then we go into a little flatter, more realistic channel. You do get a break here, and you get a first entry, second entry. So that's a third entry, but I would draw my trend line, see what you get out of that. It confirms it here, but again, that's just a first entry. You might argue that we've tested that low plenty of times, and if you, let me just go ahead and draw it. You might argue we tested that multiple times. So if you see that, maybe you go long there. Just a first entry, it's kind of a pullback. I don't think you go long there. The next thing you know, you get your break, but you get two legs down and you get a close outside new low. That could be the center of a pattern. I like going long there, and it may be the center of a pattern. This leg started right about here, so that's going to put you along about here. And if you bring it all the way back to here, then that's going to put you way up there. And so you come up short on one and you miss the other one, so you don't really get a measured move. But a lot of times when you get that two legs in there and you start another trend, you can almost argue there's another trend channel here. Now, I didn't draw it because we were working on the retest and we didn't get it till this last move. So maybe this is just a retest, but if you wanted to draw this next channel, it's there. And you still get a break and a move to a new high for it. So it just depends on how you want to play it. I don't think there's any entries up through here that I really like anyway. So the only one I really do like would be this one, because you've got your new high in place and you make a lower high way away from the EMA. You're just trying to get a scalp. Maybe you get a reversal, but you're just trying to get a scalp there. And when it didn't go down and you come back here, now you got a double top up here. This bar is kind of an inside bar. It is close enough to that high that if you had a triple test, maybe you take it. But I wouldn't take that the way it sits. You get a lower high here, but it's right into support. And this does just keep going. Finally, you get a break here. These are all just first entries and a lot of sideways stuff. You don't want to trade that. You can get burned on that. First entry. And then we're testing the lows down here. And we get a little failed breakout, but there's no setup really to go long there. And maybe this is the retest of this channel. Maybe it's a separate channel. So you could draw it or not draw it. You can always draw these channels. I usually just don't draw it on the retest. But I think you can draw that one there. And notice you get the close outside new high, and you get, there's actually a second entry short here, and then a close outside a new high. And it's really a break out of this congestion, so I like going short there. And then it breaks out the other side. Then maybe you go long there. Both of those are neat. In both cases here, you'd be better off to wait on a lower high here and a higher low here, but you don't get one. So you just trade what you see, and if you do treat this as a channel, then you just got another one here, because like so. And it runs up, close outside, move to a new high, and it turns down again. Perfect price action, really. Just no setups. Running down, close outside, new low. It looks like it's going to reverse, and bottom falls out again. So you might argue that there's a second entry long here, and if you took it, you can see that you've got enough to get out there. So maybe you mark it, maybe you don't. I mean, we just came off the high of the channel, so the odds are we're going lower again. But you can't argue that this, you got a little overshoot and a break and a new low, and we're trying to go higher here. So maybe you get, maybe you take that. And there is some more support down here as well. But this thing just fails and the bottom falls out of it. So you might even argue there's a failed second entry long here. But I don't know that I'd take it with that inside bar. If it would have broke below this bar, maybe. Or if this one had an equal high or this one had an equal high. But that inside doji, I don't think I'd take that. But guess what? It bounces right at the lows again. You get a higher low here with plenty of room back to the EMA. I like that one. So you get two legs up and then it turns back down. So there is a second entry there, but that's your signal bar and it's not good enough. It runs down, and we actually bounce here. But when you get these two back-to-back dojis, don't think about going long there because that is not rejection. They're trying to go lower and they fight it back up, but they're not having much luck of taking it higher. So that's more acceptance of prices there than it is rejection. So do not take that trade. I mean, technically this would have been the one that maybe you think about taking, but notice you don't have a break of this move down here either. But if you were going to take one, you would have considered it here first, and then you get this one, and it doesn't break above it. So now it's looking like congestion, so just sit tight. And you actually get a couple more swings to a new low. And this actually breaks lower and fails and turns up. Don't trade that on the engulfing bar, but if this closes bullish, and you get a break above it, and it's back, right there, close to that support again, I say take that one. It's a little aggressive because you're better off to wait on the higher low to get more proof, but you don't get one. And, these failed breakouts are often important highs and lows. And you can see that was a pretty good move up there. So if you catch that, it's a really nice move there. And really you get two legs up and then it turns back down. You can't trade that for the signal bar is no good. And you actually get a second entry here, but look how congested, then it drops on down. There's a shorter term trend channel here. I didn't draw it. It doesn't make any difference. You can see it right there, and you get to close outside new low, but it just doesn't go anywhere and turns back down. And that's just the first entry, and the bottom just falls out here, but you just don't really get a chance to enter any of this. This is too sideways and congested, no setup. I mean, it's very bearish, but it's just not very good setups. And then suddenly you get two legs back to the EMA trend line and a nice signal bar, and you actually really get kind of a triple top there. Nice signal bar. I like going short there. And you can see you might not have even been able to get in that because it just the bottom keeps going. The bottom just falls out of it. Boom. Just first entry. And notice how you can't really get back. I think my trend line, I don't know if I've moved this or what, but I think this trend line is a little tighter here than what I have it. I think it's more like that right there. And we get a tiny bit of an overshoot there, I think, and it pushes down one more time, and then we're coming back up. And notice we're coming up here. You get a close outside, first entry, one more push up, a 2-bar matching high for today. That's a small bar, 10 ticks, very bearish. Just go short there. That's a nice move down. I wouldn't enter on any of these others because it gets too congested there. That's just a first entry, and then we bounce here. It looked like we were going to try to make a retest, but we don't quite get there. We don't make it till here. And notice that leg up, and then you get this correction, and it goes up again. So you might look for a measured move there, and you can see we went a little higher than that. This channel runs up, close outside, new high, and you get a nice bearish bar on another second entry short. I like going short there. You still have a channel that bearish, you're going to get a retest. And if you don't get it on the first one, you'll get another attempt just like we did here. And it even made several more attempts because then it kept going lower. So this was another nice setup. You could argue there's a lower high here. It breaks higher and turns down. You can't trade that on the engulfing bar. And I don't think I would go short right there into the EMA. It's a possibility. So maybe you go short there. I think you're better off to wait. First entry. And really, this just looks like two legs down here to me. So maybe you go long there. Notice the channel working down, close outside, new low. And you're way away from the EMA. You get a pretty good reversal bar here. Again, you're better off to wait on that higher low just to be sure. But maybe you go short there and you don't get it. Close outside, move to a new high. And it turns down again. Another second entry short there, but technically it doesn't break lower, but that's still two legs up, so you could treat that like a second entry. But the signal bar is not quite good enough in my opinion. No lower high, it just runs down. And notice you got a new high here, first entry, second entry, and this breaks lower and turns up. You might take that on the engulfing bar, even though that's sideways. That is not congestion. You don't have any dojis or no body, tiny bodies on the bars there. That's just sideways. You still got a little momentum down, but the buying's starting to come in. And when you get this bar that breaks lower and reverses, and this is all bearish, I like going long on that bar if you go long on the engulfing bar. And that's not for everybody. That's a more advanced trade. After that, you still got a little room back to the EMA, but I'd want enough to scalp out before I'd enter above that bar. And you can see there's just not quite enough room there. It doesn't matter. It keeps going, but you just don't know that when you're trading it. And you get a trend up, close outside, new high all in one bar. That's just a first entry, though, but then suddenly you get a second entry short, lower high. So I like going short right there. And again, it just takes off. Runs down here. You get a close outside, move to a new low. You're way away from the EMA. Maybe you take that, but you're better off to wait on the higher low. And you actually get that over here with a triple test, but it's such a big bar, you got to go long right into that EMA. And that's, generally if you're trading sideways, you don't worry about the EMA too much. But we're in a bigger picture downtrend still. And so it's hard to argue that we're working sideways here, even though there's some sideways movement here. But I like going long there on either one of those. And this is just a first entry. And then you run up here. And now notice that's basically a double bottom. So that's a first entry. Technically there's a first entry here and then a second entry there. But that just looks like one move. That's clearly two legs up to a new high. Not the best signal bar, and again, you're better off to wait on a lower high, but you might take that trade. I mean, we've turned down right across there multiple times. Being that far away from the EMA, we're probably coming back. And you actually get a trend channel working down, close outside, a couple of swings to a new low, and it reverses. Unfortunately, I don't see anything I'd want to trade in there, short or long. And then it reverses. And I don't see anything here. Close outside, move to a new high, and you get that little trap up there at the top of the range, bearish bar, go short right there. It actually breaks higher and fails. It closes way inside the range, so you could clearly go short there, and that's a good move down. Boom. And then again, a first entry. Now there's a hidden second entry there, but I'd wait on a lower high here in a second entry or whatever, and you don't get it. And you get two legs down to a new low, and you kind of bottom out down here again. Once again, this is another one. See, this one has one with a much smaller body, and this one has a lot of stem. So I mean, you could almost argue for that to be green because, I mean, we bounced down there. Actually, this is the new channel. I'm sorry. Um, we made a new low there. So I don't think I would take that. I'd wait on the higher low, and you don't get that. It just runs up, close outside, run to a new high. Now you got a second entry short. Nice signal bar. You got a break of this channel in a new high. I like going short there. Again, maybe you wait on the lower high, but I wouldn't be afraid to take that trade. And you get a little first entry, second entry. It looks a little congested. I don't think I would go short there with all those tiny bodies and stems and so forth, although there's clearly two legs up. You might even argue there's a triple test there of some type. So, you know, if you really want to be a little aggressive, and you can see it breaks lower and it comes back, and I mean, you know, you could have easily gotten stopped out on that. So, but it does. It drops on down, and then you get makes a new low, and then you get a first entry, and a second entry, and a new low all in there. You already had a new low, so you get this little trap. And I don't think I would trade that on the engulfing bar. I'd go long there. And again, you're better off to wait on the higher low, and you don't get one. Runs up, or not a tradable one. I mean, this obviously this is a higher low, but it's not tradable. We've moved too far. A higher low would be much closer to these other lows here. And then it turns down on the second entry, but no setup. Here's another second entry, very similar to this. First entry, second entry. It worked the first time. Usually repeat patterns kind of work the same. So if you took the other one and you saw the repeat, maybe you take it. Just a first entry. And then I think you get a little overshoot here, which leads to a break. And that's just a first entry. Now there is a second entry because of the 2-bar matching low, but you're going short right into that. Don't do that. It would have worked, but it drops down here and it makes a triple test. But that's your signal bar, and it's not good enough. It's too bearish. And you can't go long above this one because this is your signal bar. But in this case, you do get a higher low. And it bounces off the previous support. It's a pretty good sized bar, but we've seen worse, and so maybe you go long there. I like that one, to be honest. And then you come back and test it again and get another bar. So again, you could go long again. There's plenty of room up here to this high, and then you get a second entry higher low right here. I like it as well. So you could have taken any three of those or all three of them. And this thing just takes off. And you might get a runner on this one, maybe, depending on how you played it. That's just a first entry. And of course you do get a close outside here. And that runs back up to the highs. I don't think that's good enough to go short, and then it pushes up one more time. And you actually get a second entry short up here when it breaks below that, but you can't use any of those for a signal bar. You do get a back to the range here, but it just looks a little congested. I'd skip it. First entry, you do get a close outside. First entry moves to a new low. Where does it bounce? Right off the lows again. You run up here, and notice you make a new high, and you try to go higher once. So that's a second entry long right there with plenty of room back to the EMA. I like taking that. Plus, you tried to go short twice. This is where you might see a reversal. That is not a very good reversal pattern because you'd want this entry point to be above the EMA. But since there's enough room to trade back to it, and it's also a second entry, I say take that trade. First entry. There is a second entry here, but you got to go long. You got to go long at the highs, and you can see it doesn't go very far. You would have got stopped right out on that. You can't trade that on the engulfing bar, so you'd have to go long right there. And there's a good example of why you don't go long into the high, because you get stopped out, and it still goes right where you thought. Runs up here, just a first entry short. And this was a spike in channel here. I think we already talked about that. But then it runs back down to the trend line, close outside, attempts to make a new low, and when it breaks above there, it triggers a second entry. I like that one. It doesn't go all the way back to the top, but it's a quick, easy scalp, and then we turn down. And there's a lower high here, but it's not a tradable one. First entry. and then it bounces again. And you get a close outside, and then you low here. Bounces. Is that signal bar good enough? Maybe. You could argue for it to be green. No higher or low, and it just keeps going, and it just you get a couple of first entries right into the 2:30 hour there. So, and that was it. So again, it took 30 minutes today, and so it's a lot of trades, a lot of price action. Hopefully the volatility will slow down. You know, people ask me, you know, this is different than normal. How do you trade this? You know, your stops are so big, but honestly, I don't. Where you put your stop is more important than how big your stop is. With the trading we do, that's a fact. And when the volatility gets high like this, you get your scalp much quicker, much faster, and you get a lot more runners. Now, you only need to find two of these, the best trades here. Now, I showed you several second entries right off the key entry point, a few triple tests right off the support or resistance. You could find those two trades here today, and probably most any two of them would have given you an easy scalp, and several of them would have given you a nice runner that might have erased two, depending on how you played it, could easily erase 20 losses. So don't worry so much about the size of your stop. Worry more about where you've got it. Now, if you're trading live and you're not doing very well, of course you should worry about the size of your stop, but you shouldn't be trading live. You should be on the simulator and not worrying about how big your stop is and getting the practice and learning so you don't make those mistakes. And you learn where to enter in the right places. So it's you know, there's no, if you're sim trading, you want to take every trade. Don't worry how big the signal bar is. Don't worry how big your stop is. Put it where it goes. If you put it anywhere else inside the signal bar and you don't get it one tick above it if you're going short or one tick below it if you're going long, you're going to get stopped out almost every time. And you're just spinning your wheels and you're wondering why you're not having any success. I had somebody ask me that question this week. I hadn't had that question in a long time, but we got a lot of new people that have come in the last few weeks, and I mean it's steadily, you know, people that disappear and people that new people that come in. So that's why I'm always repeating myself as well. And we have people that have been here years and years and years, and they're still working on it. And they get better, but maybe they're not quite there yet. This is not an easy skill to learn. Some people catch on to it quicker than others. But the real thing is the experience. And you know, when the market's slow, you know, sometimes it moves like a snail. And then right now it's like a jackrabbit. And you know, no sooner than you're in, you're out with your scalp. It's just like a blink. The next thing you know, it's run 5, 6, 8 points in just minutes on a runner. So you know, but if you get it wrong, the same thing. You're out in a second, and it's gone against you quickly. So don't move your stops around or play with your stops. Put them where they go and be done with it. So anyway, I'm going to wrap it up. That's going to wrap up our week. I hope you had a good trading week. Again, it's been some difficult trading. So if you're struggling, don't beat yourself up. This is not the easiest trading. The last 2 days have been much, much better than a couple of days we had. Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday, I think or Monday and Tuesday were pretty rough. And then Wednesday and Thursday have been still tough trading. Don't get me wrong, because the volatility's high. But when you get good at this, if you get to where you can trade in this and break even break even, but if you can make money, when it goes back to normal, it's going to be like taking candy from a baby, because you'll have more time to read it, more time to make your decisions, more times to make sure you're not making mistakes, and it'll be slow. I mean, you'll be bored. That's what'll happen. You'll get super bored, but it'll be much easier. When it's like people complain about it being like this, and then when it gets slow, they're like, "Gosh, I wish we had the volatility back." You know, so people are never happy. And you just trade one issue with the volatility for another issue when it gets slow. So there's pros and cons to every type market you'll have. The very slow ones, there's pros and cons, and the very fast ones, the high volatilities like we had the last few days, there's pros and cons. And the deal is you got to get to where you can trade them all. And this just takes time. But because it takes time to see them all. It may take you a couple of years to see all the personalities this market can throw at you. But anyway, I'm going to wrap it up. Have a great weekend. We'll be back again to do it Monday. I'm done for today. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.